Hey y'all, how's it going? Just chilling, waiting for meds to kick in and go to sleep. Been a stressful week this week, but made it through. Had good news, so can't get much better than that. So, today's video, I'm gonna kind of take you on my journey from religion to spirituality. I was raised Catholic as a child, baptized, all of that. I mean, the whole shebang. And then when we moved to Virginia in 78, we started going to the church my grandmother went to, which was United Methodist. So, my mom, she was raised Catholic, so when we first moved up here, she really wanted to stay with that, but Mom was also a recovering alcoholic, and when she went to the clergyman at the Catholic church and asked where and when AA meetings were held, at first he was like, oh, you're wanting to recommend somebody for it and give them the information, huh? And she said, no, it's for myself. And he kind of treated her like crap after that. So needless to say, my mom basically told him to fuck off, and we never went back there. So I started going to church with my grandmother every weekend, and I went to Sunday school and vacation Bible school in the summertime. I was part of the choir. The whole thing. And I felt good because I was being a good daughter and granddaughter by doing what was expected of me. And I excelled at all of it in learning, and always did what was required of me. And I didn't know anything but growing up in that life. But as I got older, I questioned more and more. I wouldn't get that peaceful feeling the older I got that I used to have when I was younger, being in church. God was, up in heaven, and all was right with the world, and that feeling faded, and I questioned more and more. And the Catholic Church is very, very strict when it comes to their rules, and their of course, when I wanted to get married, the fact that my husband was already divorced and with 2 kids didn't sit well in a lot of communities. But the preachers that I grew up with in United Methodist never really had an issue with it, except the one that was the preacher when I was going to get married. He had a big problem with it and refused to do the ceremony. So I ended up having to go to a different church in town to have my wedding because it was a church wedding. It was also a military wedding because, my husband was military and my dad was, my brother was, so it was just, all the men were in the military uniforms and all that fun stuff. So, it kind of hurt not being able to celebrate with the people I grew up around because the pastor wouldn't allow it. And, that just made me question even more. So after I got married, and began my adult life, I kept searching. After I got married, I still went to United Methodist for a while. Hello, Lovey. But then I started to reach out to other denominations of faith and started searching for more meaning in religion. It couldn't it couldn't all be about, okay, God's there, he's told you these things, do them or else you're going to hell forever. And, there had to be more because the religion was there, but the spirituality of it was gone. I didn't feel inspired anymore. So I studied, I went through learning the Mormons' way of worship. And then later on, I studied with Jehovah's Witnesses. With the one that made the most sense was at the time was the Jehovah's Witnesses. They were really good about not taking one line in a verse of a chapter and using it to mean what they wanted it to. They actually would read the entire, maybe not the entire chapter, but at least the part that they wanted to get across. And then they would also reference one or two other areas of the Bible that would back up that point. And that made a lot of sense to me. It was the closest I felt to, organized religion actually getting it right finally. But yeah, I did stop going because there were some big fundamental differences in their thinking and mine. So I never, quote unquote, joined. I just attended. And that was good for me. And, my children were raised to, when they were younger, I took them to church, maybe not every week, but, we did go to church and, they had gone to Vacation Bible School quite a few times. But, church wasn't necessary for them to be great, great children and be raised to be great men. I raised them in love with core values that are honorable. And, looking at my boys now, I know I did good. I raised wonderful young men that are responsible and that other people like to be around because they're upstanding and they'll do anything for their friends. And, after they reach their teenage years, I, never once forced them to go to church after that. It was their choice because I am always a firm believer that you give all the information you can and let each individual choose what's best for them. And they were raised with Bibles in the house, and they had read through it. They understood the concept of religion and God. But as they got older, it wasn't really for them. And that was fine. I didn't have a problem with that. And then in 2007, I found paganism / Wicca. A lot of people think that paganism, Wicca, and witchcraft have to deal with Satan. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because these are forms of worship that existed long before the concept of heaven and hell. We, being Wicca, we just believe in the duality of everything. We don't worship God, we worship God and goddesses. We find peace and strength in nature, and we don't feel the need to bow to anyone or ask for some higher being to do things for us. We ask them to give us the strength to do it ourselves. And it really started to resonate a lot more with me the more I learned about the fact that it's not an organized religion. It's based on spirituality, and you don't have to pay somebody to give you their interpretation of what everything means. I'm fully able to figure things out myself, and there's communities around the world that you can connect with online if you do have questions. And it really, learning everything about Wicca, witchcraft, paganism, which they are three separate things. They kind of do get intertwined, but you can be Wiccan without being a witch or a pagan, and so on. One does not equal the others, but you can learn all three at the same time. And nobody's going to condemn you for it. So ever since then, I've been on that path of spirituality, and things have been a lot better in my life that way. I don't have people telling me how everything I do that is quote unquote goes against their rules is sending me to hell. I don't have people saying that to me. I'm celebrated for being a strong, independent woman, which, you know, Catholicism specifically is really fond of belittling and minimizing the important role that a woman plays in life. You know, to this day, they still don't let women become cardinals unless something's changed in the last couple of years. You know, Catholicism really is a patriarchal, organized religion. And, you know, anybody past the age of reason pretty much ditches Catholicism. You know, once you're old enough to start questioning, most people, you know, move away from the Catholic version of things. But you have to find what works for you and not accept what others tell you should. You need to question. You need to go on that journey to find what speaks to your soul. And for me, learning about the Wicca and becoming more spiritual went hand in hand. In 2008, my mom had lots of medical issues and she had a rough year. She had gone into a coma because of medical issues. They really didn't think she was going to survive. Luckily, she did at that point, and was able to come home and everything. But then later on, she had a wound from surgery that wouldn't heal. And in the end, that's what took her life. It was septic. It became septic, and it just wouldn't heal because she was severely diabetic, and, you know, she kept getting weaker and declining. And You know, at times my mom was very, very strong, but she kept holding on, and she kept fighting to stay in this world. And after, you know, a lot of the family had come in and talked with my mom and kind of said their final words and goodbyes, you know, everybody was, you know, telling her, you know, you'll beat this, you're strong, you can fight it and everything. And one night after everybody left, I kind of stayed with my mom and I looked at her. I said, you know, it's okay, Mom. We'll be okay, and you need to stop fighting and just let go. And we'll hurt, we'll miss you, and we'll constantly want you back, but you've fought long enough, and you don't need to suffer anymore. And I told her that because some people will cling to this life long after they should because they're afraid of leaving their family and how their family will fare after they're gone. And as I was continuing to learn more about the Wiccan way, I realized that, you know, keep wanting her to stay here and keep fighting was a very selfish view, because she was suffering badly. She was in pain. She was not healing. And I mean, I wouldn't wish that shit on my worst enemy. So to watch your mother suffer that way and continue fighting because she can't let go is just something that's really hard to live with. So I spoke up and I told her, you know, we'll be okay in the end. It's okay to let go. And some people really need to hear that. And I knew nobody else in my family was going to ever say that to her. So I swallowed my pride and, not pride. I put aside my desires of wanting my mother to stay and let her know it was okay to go. And that was hard. I wish I could have that kind of clarity with the circumstances of Dad's passing. Everything was so sudden, whereas with Mom it was a long drawn out process, and with Dad it was so sudden, and I didn't get the chance to give that final goodbye. By the time we all got to the hospital that morning, he was already gone, and I knew it. So it's hard to be as open-minded about that, especially because I blamed myself for so long. And I'm trying to to work through it all. I kind of had an insight this evening. You know, all my life I've seen myself as a fuck up. And without even realizing it, you know, whatever that first ever major fuck up I did was, from that point on, I gave myself a life sentence without the possibility of being pardoned, you know, and I've realized nothing in this life that I've done deserves a life sentence of suffering and self-punishment. Yeah, maybe I fucked up, but I'm human, and, you know, my fuck-ups, I've learned from them, and I don't deserve a life sentence for anything that I've done. So I need to give myself those papers of being pardoned. Yeah, maybe not literally, but metaphorically. To help let go of everything: guilt, hate, self-loathing, hatred, everything I've punished myself with for so long. I need to let it go, and, you know, I think I need to start doing more studying, because I've kind of fallen away from learning and studying about things, and I need to get back into it and start really following my spiritual path a little more regularly. But it's amazing sometimes the clarity we can find in life's tragedies. And, you know, I've made it here to this point in my life. You know, I know I'm not perfect. I'm no supermodel. I'm certainly no beauty queen, but I've made it this far, and I'm a good person. And to me, that's a lot more fulfilling than being someone that quotes Bible verses and puts on airs of, you know, saying, oh, I'm a good Christian and all of this, when I can say anything I want, but my actions are what will prove or disprove it. And I certainly try to let my actions speak louder than my words. I thoroughly appreciate y'all listening. I hope and pray each and every one of you finds the strength to keep going while you need to. And maybe take a little bit away from this and realize that, you know, maybe you've been punishing yourself for something for so long, and that maybe it's time to let go. So I shall bid you all a fond farewell. Love y'all very much. And I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.